Hello and welcome to Witchy Wellness Radio. I'm your host, Lauren Chalantani, women's holistic health coach and fellow recovering perfectionist. This podcast was created to show you that your body is not in the way, it is actually leading your way. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Witchy Wellness Radio. And again, I'm your host, Lauren, and this is episode 58, The Brighter Side of Marriage with Monica Tanner. Do you actually believe that your relationship or marriage has a happy ending? Well, our guest today, Monica Tanner, is here to help convince you that it is possible. She believes in it, and all it takes is if you believe in it too. Monica is a relationship and intimacy sexpert, married to her best friend, a boss mom to 4 small humans, and a weekly podcaster on the brighter side of life. But so many of us know, and this is what we dive into today, that marriage and relationships are hard. They take a lot of work. There's a lot of ups and downs, and sometimes it feels like it's too much. But Monica lets us in on a little secret that it's a lot easier than you might think. And it may be just a few time-saving and life-saving simple tools to help empower you to take your power back, not only in your own life, but in your relationship. She firmly believes that there's no two people on planet Earth that love each other more than her and her husband. And her mission, honestly, is to help you believe that that's possible for you and your relationship as well. In this episode, you'll hear how Monica went from the verge of breakdown to now helping people save their marriages and sex lives, why emotions make us overlook the most simplest of solutions, balancing your own well-being and needs as a woman, becoming the hero in your marriage or relationship, debunking all of those silly marriage myths, complete connection, her technique and coaching program, and lastly, we talk about her 14-day intimacy challenge. So without further ado, please enjoy episode 58, Brighter Side of Marriage with Monica Tanner. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Witchy Wellness Radio. And today we have Monica Tanner with us, and she is a relationship and intimacy expert. And I'm so excited to dive into this because I know so many fellow recovering perfectionists and listeners in this show have bumped into some of these issues. And what a beautiful way that now we're recording this kind of during all the quarantine to kind of dive into that and strengthen your connection with yourself and your partner. So welcome to the show today, Monica.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to learn, quite frankly. On your website, I love your little bio, and it's just so heartwarming about you say you and your husband are the most two in love people in the world. And just that sentence just like made my heart melt into a million pieces. And who doesn't love a good heartwarming story? And I would love to hear how you got into being this relationship and intimacy expert today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to tell you my story, but I do want to let you know that I do feel like it is my mission and purpose in life to help you feel the same way I do, in that you and your husband are the most in love people in the world. So that's what I do, and I absolutely love it. But I will tell you how I got to that point. It started when I was very young. I was 12 years old when my parents got a divorce. And obviously, that one event changed the entire projection of my life. So, I came from a very nuclear family. It was a mom and dad, and me and my little brother. And, everything was really smooth sailing until my parents decided that they were going to divorce. And that changed everything. And so I became really obsessed with what makes relationships strong and marriages work. And so I did that in my undergrad. In college, I studied relationships through sociology. My plan was to get my master's of social work and help families stay together. through that. But instead, right before I started that, I actually got into the program and was about to start it. And then I met my husband, who swept me off my feet and moved me away. So I did not do that program, but I started learning through experience all about marriage. And the trouble with us in our marriage started about 6 years into our marriage. Um, we had started a business, and I had 3 kids at the time. So I just had my third baby. So 3 kids under the age of 5. And he was working all the time, which left me in charge of managing the household, the children, and it was also doing payroll and bookkeeping and accounting for our business. And I was, needless to say, extremely overwhelmed, very emotional, a little bit postpartum, and loads of resentment. So that caused a huge chasm in our marriage, because what would happen is he would come home from work, and I was, at the computer trying to nurse a newborn, lack of sleep, toddlers running around wreaking havoc on my house, and I was trying to meet payroll deadlines, and I would just be like on the verge of, tears and emotional breakdown. And my husband, bless his heart, has many, many, many talents, but he does not do emotion very well. So he comes in and sees a woman crying, and he's like, peace, I'm out, can't handle it, right? And so this was happening every day, and it was causing this like bigger and bigger, wider divide in our marriage, because I felt like he's supposed to help me, he's supposed to understand, but I would be so emotional that he couldn't see through that. And so it got worse and worse and worse, until one day I was talking to my mom on the phone, who is a marriage and family counselor. She does help people with their marriages. And I remember I was just bawling, crying, and telling her I couldn't do it all. And my mom was like, Monica, you are not supposed to be doing all of this. Like, there is no human being on the planet who should by herself be able to be doing all that you do with the house, with the kids, with the business, with all of it. You need some help. And I said the meanest thing I have ever said to anyone that day. I said, Mom, how would you know? Your marriage didn't work, right? And those were cutting words, but it was how I felt. And I immediately felt regret, but I hung up with her and just fell into this heap of tears on the ground, feeling sorry for myself, trying to figure out what it was I was supposed to do, and facing the really harsh reality that maybe I wasn't cut out for all of this. Like, maybe, 3 kids was too much. Maybe I didn't know how to be a wife, and maybe this whole marriage was just not even going to work out. And I remember just crying and crying and crying until there was absolutely no tears left in my entire body. And I got up off the floor and I sat on the couch, and I just breathed and waited for my husband to get home that night. And so he came home from work, and I was still sitting there on the couch, no tears left, because I had cried all the tears. And so he came in, and he came and sat down next to me, put his hand on my leg, and was like, I can tell that something's wrong. What can I do? How can I fix it? And without any emotion or tears or anything, I just said, this is too much. I can't do all of it. I can't help with the business, run this household, take care of all these kids, keep things clean, have dinner on the table. I just can't do it. And he looked at me and he said, I see. He said, I want you to pump a bottle for me, and then I want you to go to bed, and I want you to get a good night's rest. And those were like the most loving words that anyone could ever say in that moment. I was like, bless you, thank you. And I did exactly what he said. I pumped a bottle and I went to bed, and I slept better than I had slept in like years. And so when I woke up totally on my own, my baby was in the crib next to me, but the house was quiet. And I walked downstairs, and the house was spotless. Everything was cleaned up. And there was a note on my refrigerator that said, I've taken the kids to my mom's, relax, enjoy the day. And there's one more note for you on the computer. So I went to the computer, and it was a little sticky note, and it said, the bookkeeper will be here at 1. Have all of the things that you do prepared and ready to hand over to her. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I just started crying all over again, because of that outpouring of love, he knew exactly what I needed. He knew exactly how to help. And it had gone so long and gotten so bad because I couldn't just process my emotions and ask for what I needed. And the moment that I did, my husband helped me with everything. Like the answers were in the exact spot that I was running from. And so I realized that day that sometimes we overlook the solution to all of our problems because of our emotions. And so that's when I started creating my framework for processing emotions, complete connection, and complete intimacy. And kind of over the next few years, as I started to understand how to take the resentment away and ask for the things that I needed and communicate better with my husband, that's really, when we started to solidify our relationship. And like you said, that sentiment, where that sentiment came from, that I feel like we're the two most in love people in the entire world. That doesn't mean we don't fight. That doesn't mean we don't disagree sometimes. That doesn't mean that resentment doesn't creep in. But now I feel like I have the tools, strategies, and frameworks to resolve all of that before it becomes a problem. And I've helped countless other people learn how to do that as well. So that's what I do.
Beautiful and very needed. And I know on my own journey, it's like when you're so wrapped up in that emotional ball, you have no idea what you need or what you want. And that's so
It's so
true. To understand and even just ask for help, because as women, I feel like
yeah.
you're an example of like have to be everything for everyone every time. And then
Yeah.
no
As
wonder we
women,
melt down.
as women, we always feel like we need to be all things to all people. And that is just not the case. It's not the case. We, are full of value and love, and we want to serve, but that doesn't mean that we can give away our entire selves. We have to learn how to balance all of this. So yeah, it's very, very important.
Very much so. So now you help women with their intimacy and relationships. I know you have a few different challenges, intimacy challenges. Could you kind of walk us through what that might look like and why somebody might need that in their life?
Yeah, yeah. So I actually recently have gotten really into helping women with their intimacy, women and men, but mostly women. And the way I did this was I partnered with a sex therapist because I was getting so many requests to help women who wanted to be intimate with their spouse, but they just didn't know how. And so I knew how to create a really, really strong connection. And I knew I didn't struggle with my own personal intimacy, but I wanted to make sure I was really clear on the types of barriers that women have to this intimacy. So I partnered with a sex therapist. Her name is Cami Hurston. She's absolutely amazing. She has taught me so much about intimacy. We created this challenge together. It's called the 14-day complete intimacy challenge. And what it does is in 14 days, each day you get this little 2-minute prompt for you to do something that takes about 5 minutes. And it starts with friendship and moves to romance and ends in physical intimacy. And so it's this really great framework that you can kind of move through each day. And the feedback we've gotten on it from the people that have gone through it is just incredible. I mean, people are like, I have never thought about these things ever. And so really it's just prompting you to think about little things that's going to help you build your desire for physical intimacy. And there's a lot that's wrapped up in that. And at the end, you get to do this other free class that talks about how to unlock your desire. And lots of people have gone through it and really, really, really benefited from it. So it's been lots of fun to see that kind of taking shape.
Because I'm assuming, working with people with these relationship issues. To me, the intimacy issues are hand in hand with that. Because if you, as a woman, if we have a lot of unprocessed emotions, that intimacy just is not even on our wavelength. it's just way gone.
Absolutely. I am working with a woman right now and I love working with her, but she cries every single time. So
Mm.
she says we it's not that we lack the quantity of sex. We have a lot of sex. She's like, but every time I cry. And so we've been working on learning how to process that emotion and figuring out what those barriers are and why she cries. It's not that she doesn't like sex, but she just has all these emotions that are kind of folded into it, and that's very, very common. There's actually 5 areas of places where most women have barriers up against sex, and it's, you know, physical, mental, emotional, cultural, and those types of things that keep us from getting the deepest fulfillment and enjoyment out of our sexual experiences. And so once we start to kind of unravel those and break those down, you'll find that women have a greater capacity to enjoy sex than even men do. So it's really actually a beautiful thing to start to see women kind of come out of all of these barriers and really start to enjoy sexual intimacy. So that's been one of the just most rewarding things that I've gotten to witness in doing this work. So
Yes, I feel like now as a woman, but also in a relationship, it's a beautiful time where men are realizing that, we're equal partners in both ways, and we have to do our own work and men have to do their own work as well, and balancing our own programs or issues to be able to come into this a relationship as a whole person. For
absolutely.
me, in the past, I was very codependent and, changed a lot of things about myself to fit in with the person, to make sure, what if they don't like me? And a lot of my own work, which I'm sure you help people through, is realizing that I'm whole by myself. And my partner, now I love him so much and I know he is my life partner, but I came into that relationship as my whole self. We both said if we didn't do our own personal work and loving ourselves, we would have never have met. So it's, even if you're in a relationship or if you're single or if you're married, I find it so important, and I'm sure you could talk more about this, of, processing the emotions and kind of digging into those false beliefs of, not enough or whatever you have, to realize that you are whole right now.
Absolutely. That is the most important work that we can absolutely do. And we're always doing it. It's constantly changing. So it's not like you're ever done.
Definitely not. It's a big journey. Um, but I love, you know, the mirror of a relationship. Relationships can be either reflecting something good about you, or they might, trigger something where like you had a beautiful opportunity to be like, I'm doing everything, I need help. And, other women are going to have other areas in their life where they're going to, have a mirror for something that they need to heal.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
totally. I was actually just filming a video today that talked about our raw spots or wounds, according to Dr. Sue Johnson. And raw spots and wounds are sensitivities that come from past relationships where we have felt emotionally deprived or deserted. And so it's really important that we become very familiar with these wounds. And in a loving relationship, in any loving relationship, these wounds kind of rub against each other simply because we love each other. But that can cause all kinds of problems if we're not aware of those sensitivities and raw spots, as she calls them. And so that's a work that we're constantly doing. And crisis situations like we're in right now, or big transitions, can definitely exacerbate those wounds. And so that's what we're seeing right now in, in elevated levels of conflict and anxiety, and couples fighting right now, because this is kind of a time of crisis and a lot of transition. And so those raw spots are really, really, really being exacerbated right now. And so couples are reaching out in droves asking for help. And so it's very, very common. If you're feeling triggered, if you're feeling, just helpless, hopeless, frustrated in your relationship, there's an absolute reason for it, and it's okay. So take a few deep breaths and just find the help that you need, and just know that you are not alone.
Beautiful. And I know if someone might be interested in working with you right now, you have a complete connections coaching program. Could you kind of walk us through maybe who that's for, how that program works, and if they're interested, how we can get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my complete connections coaching program is really, 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 I'm very, very, very proud of this program. And it's a very small group coaching program. I only allow 20 people at a time. So, I like to make sure that you're a good fit for the program, meaning that you're willing to show up and work hard, that you are looking for solutions in your marriage and not blaming your marriage for your unhappiness. So there's a few criteria that I look for when working with people in this program. It's a very supportive, close-knit group of people. And the way that it works is I show up each week and I teach a principle, starting with processing emotion, because that is the biggest, most important thing that we can work on in our marriage. So each week you get taught a principle, and they're short and sweet and to the point. They're very actionable. It's something you can start doing right away. And then in a couple of days, you get access to me over Voxer, which is a kind of a walkie-talkie app where you can ask me questions completely private. Nobody else hears it, and I can give you responses. And then at the end of the week, there is a group coaching kind of office hours Q&A session with me. So you can show up and talk about your experiences and your questions and anything that's on your mind. There's also a Facebook group that's exclusive just to my coaching group, where you can get support and reach out and share experiences and things like that with the group. We start on May 4th, and it's 12 weeks long. And so if that's something that is, that interests you, I would love, for you to reach out. We can see if you'd be a good fit for the program, and you're going to make massive, massive changes. So you've got to be ready to do some work and have the marriage that you've always dreamed of. Now, it's really interesting. I was having a conversation with a prospective member of the group, and I said something about if you're ready for your perfect marriage. And he emailed me back and said, I don't think there is such a thing as a perfect marriage. And I was like, you are absolutely right. There is no such thing as a perfect marriage, but I firmly believe that you can feel as if you are in the perfect marriage for you. And I am 100% confident that I have the blueprint, the roadmap, the tools, strategies, and frameworks to help you co-create with your partner the perfect marriage for the two of you. And that is absolutely attainable. I know I know that I can be a guide to help people create that, but they have to do the work. And if they're willing to do that, then they're a good fit for my program. So that's how that works.
Beautiful. So, someone might be thinking, I mean, it could be quarantine bringing all these emotions up, or something that's not, it's usually there, but swept underneath the rug. What type of things do you feel, that people come to your work that they see in their marriage or in themselves that they feel like they want help with?
Mhm. Yeah. So connection is huge. Connection, communication, and intimacy, really. I mean, those are big. Those are big. I'll call them rocky spots in relationships. And one of the biggest tenets that I teach is that your marriage has a happy ending. So I believe that your marriage can have a happy ending. And so if you believe that your marriage can have a happy ending, and that it does, that this story has a happy ending, your story, then whatever you're going through right now, whether it's quarantine, whether it's feeling lonely and disconnected, whether it's there's not enough intimacy or passion or fulfillment or pleasure, whatever it is you're going through right now is just a part of the story. It's part of the greater story. And all great stories have challenges. They have the hero of the story always has to overcome something to create that happy ending and to appreciate that happy ending. And so when couples come to me, and one big differentiation that I need to make is that I do mostly work with only one member of a couple. So it's not like marriage counseling where you have to get both couples to agree and to come. I work most of the time with only one member of the relationship. And I do truly believe that you can create the perfect marriage by yourself, so to speak, because when you do the work and you make big changes, it changes the dynamic of the relationship, which means that your partner has no choice but to change. So I don't teach you how to change your partner. I teach you how to change yourself, which changes the dynamic of the relationship, in turn changes the way your partner responds to you. And so that is really important to remember when working through like a coaching program like this. Like if your partner is interested and wants to support you or participate with you, that's great, but it's absolutely not necessary. You can do all of this work without your partner having to change anything or even knowing what you're doing. So that's something really important to remember as well.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And I feel like when you show up for yourself, it's just inspirational for the other person. And it just naturally, everything kind of vibrates up, or, your vibe attracts your tribe, that cheesy saying, but it's the same
Yeah.
principle of, your partner loves you, your spouse loves you, and they want to support you, and they see you're happier, you're more fulfilled, you're glowing, and it's like, all right, I want to have what they're having. And that only will
Yeah,
grow more and more.
it's really a beautiful thing when you start to work on yourself and make these incredible changes and you don't expect anything from your spouse. It's really like magic because they really have no choice but to reciprocate. And it's not even that they're like, you know, it's not even like they know what you're doing. It's just like all of the sudden you've changed and you've grown and you've learned how to advocate for yourself and to process these emotions and to show up in your marriage the way you really want to. And so your partner has absolutely no choice typically to reciprocate, to change, to find out what you're doing, to want to participate and support. So it's really a beautiful thing. I've had lots of uh, people, a lot of times it's men. It's really interesting because I do attract a lot of men into the program who are like, I've tried everything. My wife won't change. She's not interested, right? And she doesn't want to go to therapy. She doesn't want to do this or that. And I'm like, great. We absolutely don't need her to change anything. And so they'll start going through the program and they're like, they'll come like in the sometimes as soon as like the third or fourth week, and they're like, you'll never believe it, my wife is like, doing this and doing that, she's never done these things before. And I'm like, I know, it's this beautiful magical thing that happens when we start to work on ourselves. What happens to the people around us, they can't help it.
It's so beautiful. I love how you said so many men that are attracted to this as well. Because, I feel like stereotypical women always complaining and throwing
Yeah.
things, but anybody can show up for themselves and change themselves and change a relationship.
Yeah.
And
And it's typically men who are looking for more intimacy, to be honest.
oh wow.
Women are kind of like, I want it, I want it, but I'm not sure. And of course, we know that men are like, I want more intimacy. And I'm like, I can show you how to get it. And it's definitely been such a beautiful program and fun to see, kind of what happens in these relationships. And it can happen when the men are doing it or when the women are doing it. It's really neat.
Yeah, that's definitely a motivator for men. So that's wonderful to see that to change. That will help them change.
going to close that door so my
You're
kids
fine.
don't.
I love seeing, I was looking online today and you were posting some of the marriage myths that are out there right now. Could you kind of talk about some of the big myths that are going around and how you can kind of debunk those?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things is to just be busting marriage myths. I think that a lot of people are operating under these false beliefs that are so deeply ingrained in our culture, and they're really keeping you stuck. So if you believe something that's just absolutely not right, I should like some really common ones are that happy couples don't fight. That couldn't be further from the truth. Or I should just keep quiet and not, I don't want to rock the boat or whatever. Like totally, totally false. And the one I talked about last night, which is one that I operated under for many, many years in my marriage, and I lost so much sleep over it. But somebody, when we first got married, said that you should never go to bed angry. And I'm not kidding you. That I lost sleep over that for years before I figured out that, man, if you are exhausted and emotions are running high, you should just please go to sleep because everything looks better in the morning. And once I figured that out, I was like, this is fantastic. I would go to sleep and my husband would wake up and apologize in the morning, even if it was like not even remotely his fault. Like I would forget what we were upset about and we would just move on, or we would talk about it for a couple of minutes as opposed to like all night long. And it would just, we could move on. So there are some definite myths out there that I think people are operating under that are just keeping them stuck, or they're losing sleep over it, or whatever. So yeah, I'm kind of out there right now on a mission to just bust these crazy marriage myths that keep people stuck.
And it's needed. I've definitely heard don't go to bed angry, and not true at all. I know, with my friend relationships or family relationships, I've told people, let's pause this conversation. And when we're both in, a better state of
Sounds like
mind,
home.
let's reconvene. And that's triggering for some people too. It's surprising to see, someone's really mad or emotionally charged. They really want to just go right in, but that's not
Right then
helping
and there.
anything, right? And like you
Right.
said, it's like get a full night's rest if you can and recharge, and you have this beautiful new perspective. Because if you truly love yourself, you really truly love the person or your spouse that you're in this argument with, like respect them enough to come as your full grounded self.
Yes, you're so right. Yep, yeah, I get so sad when I hear people say that. Like sometimes at, bridal showers, they'll go around and give advice and someone will say that and I'm like, "No, do not give them that advice. It's the worst advice." So, yeah.
One question I had, if you had to give a few tips of someone could, implement in their own life today to help with their relationship or marriage, what kind of would be a good small starting point of a tip they could implement today?
Okay, so here's an example of one that I think changes everything. And I talk about this a lot, but it's called daily connections. And it was really, really, really important before the whole quarantine thing. I think it's actually like a crucial lifeline for people now. And that is just to spend 15 to 20 minutes together every single day. So you need both partners. Usually I don't give things that require a commitment from two people, but this one actually does. You want both partners to commit to spending 15 to 20 minutes of uninterrupted time together. And you want to come to this time with your defenses down, your curiosity peaked, and looking to be supportive. So, whatever you have to do to prepare yourself for these daily connection times, but get it on your calendar, make sure you come in the right frame of mind, and you want to ask each other questions like, what was hard for you today? What were some of your wins today? If you could change anything about the day, what would it be? How can we help you make that different tomorrow? How can I make your life easier? Those types of questions you want to ask each other. And then make sure you end these little sessions with some form of physical affection, whether it's a hug or a kiss or a massage or some just snuggling, some type of of endorphin releasing physical affection at the end. And I'm telling you, if you will implement this one thing in your marriage, it will not only protect and strengthen your relationship through the most difficult of times, but you will see massive, massive improvements in your just overall level of happiness and satisfaction when you are taking a little tiny bit of time each day to really try to understand your partner's inner world, inner desires, what they're going through. It's gonna make a massive difference in your relationship.
That's so beautiful and powerful. Like, that's what I do when I meditate with myself is, where did I fall off track today? Who do I want to be tomorrow? But to share that connection with your partner and, be vulnerable enough to open up. I mean, that's beautiful and something easy anybody can do. You can
Mhm.
implement today. And I'm sure with quarantine, everybody's, your partner's probably right in the other room, ready to
Yeah.
ready to
So
talk.
yeah, and it's so funny because you're like, I don't want to spend any more time with this person. I've been with them all day, every day for like thousands of days, right? You're just like, ugh. But if you don't think of it as one more thing, if you think about it like your personal meditation time, that's really, really important to be able to reconnect with yourself. Think of it as your meditation time with your spouse. That opportunity to connect and stay on course. My friend Nate Bagley describes it kind of like if you remember MapQuest back in the day, where you would type in your location and your destination, and it would print out like this like 200-page sheet of like all the turns you had to take. But guess what? If you were following that and you got lost, you're like toast. There's no way to get back on track, right? I mean, it's outdated, it's old, and you're, they probably weren't, constantly mapping new routes and things like that. So it's just a really ineffective way. And so a lot of couples, they're like, well, I know everything about my spouse. We spend all day together and we've been together for 25 years and nothing ever changes, right? It's totally an outdated way to look at it. But if you think about now with Google Maps, you put in your location and your destination, and it like tells you you got the blue dot, it's showing you where you're at, and if you make a wrong turn, she's going to start yelling at you to make a U-turn, right? And so these daily connections are going to keep you on your way to the destination that you are trying to get to. So if that is a perfect marriage, then you'll get there. So anyways, that's how I like to think of those daily connections.
And you realize, for me, it's like it's that journey. There's the perfect marriage isn't a destination. It's learning to love where you are right
And
now.
appreciate and gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
which you're really, really good at. Yes.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Oh, beautiful. Well, on that note, I think we can start to wrap things up. That's such a beautiful little ribbon on this show. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about or cover before we wrapped up today?
No, I think you've been so thorough and so great.
Yeah.
As far as something to be grateful for, I would challenge you as well to try to start every morning with some sort of gratitude practice. So my
Mm.
husband and I like to do morning snuggles, which means when one of us wakes up, whoever wakes up first reaches over and snuggles the other. And I use that time, no matter what time it is in the morning, to think of the reasons why I'm grateful for my spouse, for my kids, for my life, for my home, for our situation. And it just really primes your brain to look for the good all day long. And so, as far as a good daily gratitude practice, that's different for everyone. A lot of people I know think of the things they're grateful for at night, like looking over the day. And I would just challenge you to find some sort of really effective gratitude practice in the morning to kind of prime your brain to look for the good all day. And you will notice again a massive change in your day because you've taught your brain will find whatever you give it to look for. So if you give it good things to look for, those good gratitude feelings and intentions, then you're going to have a better day.
Yeah. I think it's called the reticulator activation system. There's actually a part
Yep.
in your brain that you reprogram I love all
Yeah.
the like nerdy neuroscience related to that. So it's scientifically proven, people. What you
I
focus
love it.
on, it'll grow.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you again so much, Monica, for coming on the show. I always end the show saying how much I'm grateful for you and your story and showing up for yourself and understanding what you need. And now you can share that knowledge and empower other people. And I'm also sure so many of these listeners are going to be able to implement so much of this in their life and are going to really want to work with you after this episode. So, as a token of our gratitude, how can we be of service for you today for showing up for us for this episode?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. You can find all of my programs and free resources and everything that you need to help grow your marriage at onthebrightersideofmarriage.com. That's kind of my homepage, and it'll lead you to lots of different resources, both free and paid, that I have created. So if you want to work with me, there's lots of information about how to do that on my website, www.onthebrightersideofmarriage.com.
Beautiful. And we'll have all of that linked in the show notes as well. Thank you again for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.